From the Opubco studios at Britton and Broadway, this is the OU edition of the Bedlam Nation Conversation with Jake Trotter. I'm Jenni Carlson. Jake, busy week for OU sports. Let's start off with Bedlam baseball. Sooners win the series after losing Game 3, but win the series for the first time that they've won the Bedlam series since 2005. How significant is that for the Sooners?
Well, very significant for bragging rights, first of all, but also for regional hosting hopes. I mean, OU has a great chance to host a regional this year. It's going to come down to the Texas A&M weekend because A&M, K-State, and OU, as Sonny Galloway puts it, are the three teams competing for two regional spots, with Texas probably having won the Big 12, have locked up the other regionals. So they put themselves in good position to host, and that's always key for advancing in the postseason baseball tournament. And
they have to feel, I mean, aside from the actual nuts and bolts of potentially getting a regional, maybe positioning themselves to be a super regional host, they have to just feel good, too, about where they are at this point in the season.
Yeah, they're playing well. I mean, they had the Kansas series that they lost, but they came back and won the Sunday game. Took 2 or 3 from OSU. The first game they won pretty comfortably. And then, the weekend before that, they had swept Baylor. So, I mean, they're playing pretty good baseball. Not maybe as great as they would want to play, but they're playing well enough, and they're hitting the ball well. The biggest key for them is they got to get some starting pitching. Their starting pitching has not been very good this last month. It really wasn't good on the weekend. I mean, Poirier, didn't last very long on Friday. Richard gave a pretty good start on Sunday, but they got to figure out what Andrew Doyle's situation is. He was suspended for the Friday night start. He was suspended for the series with Oklahoma State. They need to get him back for A&M to really, I think, to have a chance of taking 2 or 3 from the Aggies.
All right, let's turn our attention now to football. You wrote today in your Oklahoma Insider about Cameron Kinney, an interesting recruit coming in for the Sooner football team, a junior college transfer. How important could he be immediately to the OU football team?
Well, it could be very important. I mean, Cameron Kinney is a guy that only played 1 year of varsity football in high school, and he's a guy that, very versatile. He can return kicks, play offense, play defense. He played cornerback and wide receiver in high school, and he was the team's kicker and punter. So he's a guy that gives you a lot of skills. He went to junior college and really refined those skills and was really a tremendous special teams player at Garden City, in addition to be a great wide receiver. He had a 47-yard punt average, which, by the way, I think OU's last year was in the 30s, so that gives you context for how good that was. He was 8 of 9 on field goals, and he wants a chance to compete for not only the punting spot, but the place-kicking spot, too, at OU. And he'll have to do some convincing, I think, but if OU runs into some problems with Tress Wade punter or Jimmy Stevens at kicker, you're going to hear Cameron Kinney's name come up, and he's a guy that has a chance to help them there.
That's interesting, because you would think with the guys that they lost at wide receiver, his biggest influence could be on that receiver core, and yet it sounds like special teams could be where it really makes that impact.
OU hopes that his biggest impact is that wide receiver. They hope they don't need him to make an impact on special teams, but he's a guy that they can turn to if they need to. Really last year they had Jimmy Stevens at kicker and Mike Knoll at punter, and that was it. They didn't really have anyone else who could do those jobs. But this year they have a lot of options, not only with Kinney, but Bryce Easley, the walk-on from Norman. They also have, Tress Way's out of his red shirt. So they have a lot of different options at special teams. But as far as Kinney at wide receiver, he's a guy, very physical, possession guy. I think Joaquin Iglesias maybe, a very similar player. So he's a guy that will compete for a starting spot.
Okay, lastly, let's turn our attention to OU softball. Sooners get a regional host. They're the number 7 national seed. As a 7 seed, they could potentially, if they win the regional, host super regional, never have to leave the state of Oklahoma to potentially play for a national championship. Huge advantage for the Sooners, right?
You would think, and they would be the only team in softball that would have to play at home the entire postseason, or play within the confines of, or within the driving distance to Norman, 30 minutes or so. So it would be a huge advantage, and this is a team that's very talented too, so it's not just that they're going to be playing at home. They've played well enough to earn those hosting spots, and Amber Flores is one of the best players in the nation. DJ Mathis is really coming along as a pitcher, so they have a very talented team. It'll be interesting to see how they do.
All right, thanks, Jake. Stay with the best coverage team anywhere at newsok.com and every day in the Oklahoman.